The connection between Israel and the United States goes back to the very founding of America. CBN's Paul Strand in the United States and myself here in Jerusalem collaborated on this story that explains how the first American colonies look back to ancient Israel for many of their basic principles.
In wilderness like this, some 100 Puritan settlers, led by the Reverend Thomas Hooker, made their way in 1636 to what became Connecticut's capital, Hartford. It was a land wild and untamed, and they asked Hooker how they should govern it. What he preached May 31st, 1638, as it says at the base of this statue, sowed the seeds of free constitutional government in America.
The main idea in Hooker's sermon was this: the foundation of authority is laid firstly in the free consent of the people. That's the idea that helped shape the Connecticut Constitution, which then many decades later helped shape the American Constitution.
It's why many call Hooker the father of American democracy. Behind the Hartford statue of these praying settlers, a plaque says, here they established the form of government upon which the present Constitution is modeled.
Which starts off how? We the people.
Historian William Federer authors the online historical lessons called American Minute. He said this revolutionary idea of democratic rule came after 6,000 years of almost nothing but kings and emperors.
And they believed in a top-down form of government, where God gives all the power and rights to the king, and he's God's lieutenant who dispenses it to the people.
Colonialists like Hooker turned that on its head.
And America's founders, when they got the chance, they wanted to run away from a king, and they flipped it and made the people the king.
Michael Medved, radio talk show host and author of The American Miracle, summed up their united belief this way.
All of us have the same ultimate sovereign, God Almighty, but that God Almighty does not appoint and designate crowned heads over us. The power comes from the people.
John Jay, the first Chief Justice, said the people are the sovereign of this country.
Medved added, though, the Founding Fathers, for all their faith in freedom, feared a powerful state like Anglican Virginia could so dominate the country as to force its brand of faith on all the other states. Solution?
You make a First Amendment which says Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion.
They didn't want a federal Walmart to come in town and put out of business their local mom and pop denomination.
They did seem bound, though, by a common faith foundation.
The idea of providence, the idea that they were doing God's work, that this American experiment was ultimately an American miracle.
But these foundations and principles didn't form here in the colonies. Their origin was a long, long time ago in a place far, far away. For that part of the story, we turn to Chris Mitchell in Israel.
Thanks, Paul. Many pilgrims and Puritans crushed under European kings wanted the government and liberty God gave to the ancient Israelites.
When Moses took the children of Israel out of Egypt, that was the first instance in world history of an entire nation with no king.
One thing after another was revolutionary in this Hebrew republic, such as the tribes electing their own leaders, and that all people were to be treated as equals.
Israel was the beginning of the concept of equality on planet Earth.
The Hebrew Republic was the first nation with no standing army.
You have a king, he has an army to enforce his will. In Israel, every man was in the militia and armed and ready at a moment's notice to defend his family and his community.
It was the first nation where everyone was taught to read, so everyone could know the law.
Israel had no police. Not only did everyone get taught the law, everyone was responsible to help enforce the law.
Michael Medved is quick to point out that America's founders didn't adopt Old Testament law wholesale, like, for instance, the ancient law that would put wayward teenagers to death.
A rebellious son is going to be stoned. And I don't mean stoned with marijuana, but he's going to lose his life.
Federer agrees, though he insists most colonial Christians shared this crucial belief with ancient Israelites: there's a God watching everyone, wanting them to be fair and holding them accountable in the future. That creates a conscience.
If everybody in the country believes this, you can maintain complete order with no police, maximum liberty.
This is what Thomas Hooker and other New England pastors and lawmakers were looking at as a model.
And then this became the model for the other constitutions of the states, eventually the U.S. Constitution, and that allowed America to blossom into this amazing experiment of the people getting to be king and each individual citizen accountable to God.
And that's how ancient Israel and colonial America are linked more than most people would ever know.